This video is made to go along with our methods class activity. It's going to discuss a couple of the basic methods, why we use them, and a little bit about how we can use them to pass on information and return information to our Java programs. I'm going to start off by creating a method called Old MacDonald. Hopefully you all have an idea about how the Old MacDonald song goes. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on this farm he had a cat, E-I-E-I-O. So I'm going to actually call this first basic function, Old MacDonald, from within the main method. And what that will do is it will run Old MacDonald, and I will start by having it print out the generic lyrics of Old MacDonald, one line after another. So Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on this farm, he had a chicken, E-I-E-I-O. Now, while I continue to print this out line by line, you can probably see how repetitive this is going to get. So here's one of the first reasons why we use a method is to try and simplify repetitiveness. If I have to do every single animal and every single verse of Old MacDonald, I would be writing this forever. So what I'd rather do is I'd rather create another method which will sing each individual verse, and into each verse I'm going to take two arguments. So arguments are the information we're passing on to this new method. I have to define what they are, so they're going to be string types, both of them, and the first string is going to be the animal, and the second string is going to be the sound that this animal makes. Now, rather than retyping it, I am just going to cut and paste here, and I'm going to replace a few things. In my system prints, I am actually going to add or concatenate into the middle of the strings. I will replace the animal's actual name with just the variable animal, and I'm going to replace the sound the animal makes with the variable sound. Now you'll notice that I'm using the plus sign, and I need to add a little bit of a space in there just to make it look good. And now when I run this function, or when I run this method, now from within Old MacDonald, the way that I will actually have my chicken cluck is I will place inside the Old MacDonald method, I will actually call it straight up by going verse, and as arguments inside the parentheses I will put chicken and cluck in quotes. Now with strings you have to put them inside the quotes. So when I now run this method here, you will notice it actually prints out the entire lyrics for Old MacDonald with chicken and cluck as the variable. Now I'm going to add another animal. I'll put an extra space in here, and this time I will add verse pig oink. This should add a second verse where the pig's going oink, put a line break, and a third verse for a cow going moo. You notice now that I have got all three verses very simply written because they all follow the same pattern. When I run it, we get three verses of the song. This makes it simpler for me to type. This makes it less likely that I'm going to make an error by typing out the entire song. And we can use this with many different programs that may have repetitive functions or functions that are called. Now, methods can also return a value. So I will start off with the same blank scaffold here, and I'm actually going to create a method which will actually calculate the area of a circle. I'm going to start by defining a double for area. That's a number which has a decimal point, remember, and I'm going to say that the double is going to be equal to the circle area of a circle with radius 5. Now, circle area has a red line under it. I have not yet defined a method called circle area, but here we go. So we're going to make our method, and you notice here, public static double. Double is what's the return value for circle area. It will perform a series of functions and return a double or a decimal value with its from the radius. Oh, I forgot that up in circle I had to define it as 5.0, otherwise it takes as an integer. You'll notice over here, right there on the side, I've got an X. It's telling me that I have to have a return type. So it knows that it's expecting to have a return value. I have not done that yet. So I'm going to define double of area at the beginning of this and return the area. Now that double is only available within this circle area function. I am going to now just do some basic math. So area of the circle is math.pi, that's the built-in value for pi, and this will become pi r squared, radius times radius. So now we will calculate the area based on the 5.0 radius. It returns a double, which should be the calculated area, back up to the top, and then we are going to do system out print line, and we'll say the area of the circle of radius 5, and we will have it print out the variable called area. So if I now run this program, it calculates the area 78.53 and so on and so on. Now I don't have to just use a fixed value. I'm actually going to create a variable called radius. In this case I'll assign 3.0. It's a decimal number. I'll replace the 5 with the variable radius. So this is a nice thing. I'm going to be able to pass on variable information. We'll fix our print statement. And now this is going to pass on this variable of radius to our method, and it will do the calculations and return the double. So now we have an area of a radius of circle of 3, and we have the math done for us. So I'm also going to quickly do something similar. I'll create a second method to calculate the area of a triangle. I'm just going to do this straightforward by creating a double for the area and a function called triangle area, a method called triangle area, and it's going to take the base and the height, just like any normal one. For now, I'm just going to put some concrete numbers of 2 and 3 in here, or 2.0 and 3.0, as we need them to be doubles. We will have a line for printing it out. And down below, I will create a second method which returns a double type called triangle area, which takes the arguments of base and height, both in doubles. Once again, there's a good chance that we are going to be using decimals, so that's why we are defining the area as a double. And we do the basic math, 1/2 base times height, and that will get returned back to the top portion of our program. When we run our program, we now have the circle and the triangle area. Once again, the reason that we do this is if we have to do a series of calculations or functions over and over and over, it's so much easier to place them as a method rather than doing them every single time with different numbers. Another nice little final thing that I would like to add here is we're not just restricted to defined variables. We can use user input. So similar to some of the other topics that we have, we could use the scanner input class to get some system input. And we can pass this user input onto a method. So for example, we'll create a method which asks for a user's name, and we'll pass this on to a very simple greeting. Very similar to the hello world, we're just going to say, welcome to this person. Now the next thing that I'm going to add into the greeting is, what if we want to continue and loop a section until we get a continue or do not continue? So I'm going to ask, is there anybody else out there? And this time what I'm actually going to do is I'm not just going to ask for input immediately and pass it on. What I will actually do is pass on the scanner object to a method, and the method can use this object, this scanner object. So you are not restricted to just passing on integers or strings. You can actually pass on complex objects. Now the return types are still restricted. For example, in this case, we are going to return a Boolean. So remember, a Boolean is a true or false. And what we're doing in here is we are going to create a while loop. And as long as the loop is true, it will continue to ask, what is your name, and provide the greeting. The moment we say anything but yes or why another person is here, this method will actually return a value of false, which will cause it to break out of the while loop. So now if I run my program, ask what my name is there anybody else here? Yes, of course there was. Who are you expecting to be here? And then we'll answer no, and the program will end.